Good morning. I am introducing and interviewing the amazing, round of applause, Pat Hunt. Woo! Who has been in this church a long, long time and been with Jesus even longer. And a lot of you know her, but there's an awful lot of interesting things in Pat's story. So I'm going to start right at the beginning, Pat. Yeah. I'm not going to tell them what year. That's up to you.
I don't mind.
Go on then.
Yeah. 37.
1937. Yeah. In Bristol?
In Bristol.
Yep. And you were born and grew up in Bristol. Mum, dad, and a brother.
Yep.
And you went to school there, and then you started on your nursing training. It was children's nursing first?
Yeah. In Bristol Children's.
Okay. Bristol Children's. And then you later did adult nursing.
Yeah. In London.
Midwifery training as well in London. She's done so much in her life. We're just skipping over all of this stuff. In your life, were you brought up in a Christian family? Was that something that was part of your life at that stage?
Yeah, I was Church of England. Yeah. And baptised and confirmed. Okay. Yeah, at Bristol Cathedral a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Pat has always loved travelling. We got a bit more about that later, so we won't go into great details now. But I thought it was worth mentioning that Pat was... has anybody ever heard of the Australia emigration scheme where you just paid £10? Yeah.
Yep, I went on my own.
Yeah. Off to Australia. How old were you, Pat?
My 20s.
Amazing. I mean, that in itself is a story, isn't it?
I wanted to see the world.
Yeah.
And it was a way of doing it. I had no money, so I went with 30 quid in my pocket.
Fortune.
It was. It's what I earned every month.
Yeah.
You know.
So you went into nursing there?
Yes, I had jobs already lined up.
Right.
Yeah, and I got registered and everything.
And it's worth noting, for those already amazed at her story, for 2 years you had to let go of your British passport. You couldn't have changed your mind, as it were.
No, if you changed your mind, you had to fork out for your fare to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they kept my passport for 2 years, and I stayed and was there for 2.5 years. I really matured there. It was a challenging environment. And then I went on to New Zealand and did 6 months there. And I climbed mountains and things while I was there.
As you do. What's normal for Pat is not necessarily normal for the rest of us.
Yeah.
But that genuinely must have been hard for a fairly young woman to be doing that on your own.
Yeah. Well, I had a plan, you see. I wanted to see the world. And I knew getting to the southern hemisphere, I would then have to come back to the northern hemisphere. And I had it, as I was flying over India, I thought, I'm going to India and come back overland, which is what I did. You know, a very determined person I was.
Was? Or still are?
No. And so it went on.
And so you returned to London overland, by the sound of it?
Yes.
And then into a senior position at the Westminster Hospital, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I went... my parents were thinking I'm going to be lazing about at home, you know, and they got a bit worried. You know, the work ethic was very important at my time. And I went off to London and became I worked at Westminster Hospital and went through the hierarchy there.
Amazing. I mean, before we skip on to that, is there anything significant in your time in Australia and your youth that stands out?
I think in Australia I had to really say, this standard wasn't good. If you don't do this, I'm going to usher hand in my resignation. So they put things in order. And it happened a couple of times I did that. And I remember saying to God, why are you putting me in these awful places to work? And he said, I've got more for you. You're preparing. I'm preparing you. Yeah.
And that was true. The theme runs throughout your story. You then went into nurse training.
Yes. Minefield. Yeah. I went to South Bank Poly for a couple of years, and then then went off and I got a job as a nurse tutor in Bristol. And it was fortunate because my parents were getting older then, and I was there for about 9 years teaching and went up the ladder. And then when my mother eventually died, I got a senior post within months and came to Berkshire and a whole new avenue of work there. And that's where a friend brought me here to Altwood School to River Church. And I knew immediately I had come to where I wanted to be. And it was interesting. I've been in Church of England churches. I've searched for churches everywhere I worked, everywhere I was. But it wasn't until I came here that I realised I've come home. And this was special, and this is where I'm staying. Through thick and thin, which I have done. I suppose I was getting in my end of my 30s when I came here. And now, just think about it. I'm in my 80s now. I can't believe it. How did I get here? Anyway.
That's true. So we'll skip to that bit on the river stuff. You said to me, rivers dramatically changed your Christian life.
Yes.
Dramatically changed how you looked at what you could achieve and what you could do.
Yeah, the doors were open and it was a very exciting time at River. And you could do anything if you wanted to do, within reason. And I started to begin to realise that there was more to this than church, and I started realising that socially in the town, it takes a while when you come to a new area for those problems in those areas to become yours. It takes a little while. And I suddenly realised that teenage pregnancies were going up, going very high in this area. And I felt a burden for the young girls, young women and mothers and babies and all the rest of it. There was a great need. And I talked to people, and I talked to one or two people, and they were feeling the same thing. And you have to really talk it through. And a vision was developing. And I got the okay from one or two good people in the church. And because I went to them eventually, I said after about a year, I said, this is not going away. It's still with me. What shall I do? And she said, go for it, Pat, go for it. And I did. And then another person who was a leader of another church said to me, you need to write a business plan. A business plan? Anyway. And then I got some key people with me, and I sat under the stairs with Lucy Pettit, and we wrote the business plan. And then we had to go forward and I went to the church. And then we went forward with it. It took a couple of years. It doesn't happen straight away. It's a bit messy because you think you're not going to achieve exactly what you want, but you do. It happens, and it's coping with the disappointments, the ups and downs. It's very important. Anyway, that's what we did, managed to do.
I'm going to come back to that in a minute. That stream, as I was talking to you the last couple of weeks, the stream of hearing something from God, having an idea, and absolutely knowing you had to stick with that, regardless of how impossible it looked.
Yes.
And then there seemed to be a kind of a structure where you'd put the right people around you, work out who the key people, and not necessarily people in your friendship group, but people that you felt were the right people to take those things forward and that could come alongside you. And actually skipping back a bit, that happened when you were doing your training and your teaching job. It happened to be that at a time when nursing was completely changing.
Yes.
And you had that same approach even then, didn't you?
I did. It's quite extraordinary, really. I just got into Reading and Berkshire, and nationally there was a problem. There was a great movement throughout the country for nurse training to develop into colleges and then link with higher education. And that was the story at the time. But in West Berkshire, I was in just West Berkshire for nursing and midwifery, and there was an East Berkshire nursing and midwifery, and historically it had all been very hospital-based. But now there was a need. I saw a vision that we had to come together, East and West Berkshire, which are quite different cultures, and they didn't want to come together. They didn't want to join together. And so I had to get people nationally to come down, whom I knew quite well. And we had a big day, and nationally they put it across to them. You've got to get together. There is a college needing to be developed here in Berkshire. So that's what happened. After sweat and tears, it happened, and we joined the schools of nursing and schools of midwifery, and for 5 years I was principal of the college, and then we were linking with University of Reading, and then and that's what I wanted to achieve. That was my vision. Then nationally they have other ideas sometimes, and they want to actually put you in totally into higher education. And then it was a big debate, another debate, which I didn't win. But that's beside the point. I wanted to get the nurses and midwives together for the whole county, because I could see there was a need to have a college for the county. Mm. You know, there was one in Southampton, there was one in Oxford. Why can't we have one in Berkshire? And I fought hard, but I didn't win that bit. But it was... You had to cope with your disappointments and just go on aiming high.
Mm. And that's still, I mean, the amalgamation of Berkshire still exists in nurse training. That legacy lives on.
Yes.
One of the things you've said to me is, when I have a vision, I make things happen. And you just, sometimes that is a fight, and sometimes that is disappointing, as you've pointed out, and sometimes it takes a lot longer. Yeah. And most of the time, it's not the way you expected it to happen. It's the way God's expecting it to happen, which I think we can all learn from. So coming back to the charity stuff, I know you created a place for homeless men initially, and then followed that through with the young women that you were talking about. Yeah. Now, that eventually became a charity called
Recharge, and it's now called Recharge R&R. And it's been going on now for nearly 20 years.
Yeah, so that charity still exists in this area.
It's still gone on, and it's really good. And the thing is, with that charity is that they're training the young girls, the women, to be leaders too. And so they're making their own leadership, which is really brilliant. This is how it should be. But it's not just a cup of tea and a hand on the shoulder. It's actually helping people through real problems and real difficulties. And I've had links with all sorts of people, social services and education, to help these young girls move forward with their lives, which was great. It was really very exciting and great to be part of. And we started off in Maidenhead, and it's then grown. It's great. It's a good recipe for success, really. It was lovely, and still going on. And when I go down to the Methodist Church once a week to an art group, in the next room is Recharge going on, which is really lovely, you know. So I can have a chat with them, have updates.
Yeah. And one of the things you said to me was, carrying that vision and the way to that vision, even once it started and up and running as Recharge was, it's about mentoring and looking forward to the people that are going to take that over, and knowing when is the right time for you to step back.
Yes.
And I think that's actually quite a hard thing to understand sometimes, and you really do need God in that to know when is the right time to pass that forward, and who are the right people to find to take that through.
I think you're right. It's knowing when to withdraw. You know, you've done your bit, and you've got people in authority to carry on, and that's what happened. And I said, right, I'm going to go now. I'm going to go and do something different.
Yeah.
And
and in each of these things, it wasn't just a case of, there's the vision and here's the people. You also put a lot of work into, I know with the Recharge stuff, you were going once a week to Earl's Court to the homeless to find out how that population worked and where you could help.
Yes. And I had to prepare myself, because I had been in a very much a hospital settings, and I didn't know not much experience of social work. So I went to Earl's Court Project once a week for a couple of years, where Rachel Jameson was working, and I had I learned, and they were working with street people, and then I did a couple of years of River Life as well, to really gain the skills and to know how to learn how to manage volunteers, which is that's another ball game. They're not employees. But it was great. It was good. You had to prepare yourself for it.
And you can see there how long these things can take.
Yeah.
But the person with the idea, it can take a long time for that vision to come through.
Yes.
So leading on to sort of later years, I know, actually, let's go back. You've always loved to travel, haven't you? You've always travelled. You've told us that already. Some of that travel has been for pleasure. Sometimes it's been mission. Sometimes it's been work.
Yes.
Any outstanding things you want to tell us?
Yeah, well, for work, I went as an employee of the Department of Social Development, British government, to go to India for a month or so to do a report on a nursing college in Orissa, which is a very poor state in India. And I had my own jeep and driver, and it was great. And I did that. I went and visited schools of nursing in different places in India, in the state, which was really helpful, really great. It was good. It was very exciting. And the college was it had one floor, and we had to make plans for the development of another floor. And I had to write a report and everything and come home and present it to the Foreign Office, or whatever it was. Yeah, it was a good experience. I wanted us to have a link with them permanently, but, the nursing hierarchy in Berkshire weren't open to that. But never mind.
And you also did a month where you kind of literally used the biblical thing that the disciples had, just don't take much with you and let God provide.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I spent a month with Ashley, and that was amazing. We're travelling on trains overnight and buses overnight, and helping to do some evangelism. But we went to a very difficult area which is now suffering quite a lot. And I was able to witness being in the mission field, receiving Bibles from overseas teams, and also visiting a family in incognito or in secrecy, doing something overtly, and for the Christian field in a very poor area. But it was a marvellous experience. And, that was it.
And one of the other things you've said, I mean, there's loads. You just need to talk to Pat. There isn't time to do this. Encouraging other people, going in and teaching others in the field how they can, again, there's that same thread of carrying through, mentoring and working out who takes over the banner next.
Yes, I went to Africa, and I was with Norman Barnes, who is really a special man, and I loved it that time. And it was in the Transkei, a very black area, and we were the first people white people to stay overnight in this area, and it was special, And Norman took me with him to visit the elders. And he was wanting me to stay out there and, put it right. And I thought, no, I can't. It's very political. And I didn't want to go into the African political scene particularly. But it was an experience. We had a wonderful time. I was with medics and nurses teaching community health care.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much travelling, including Antarctica. Just ask Pat later. So in your later years now, you're still not stopping. You've still got all sorts of hobbies and interests. You've mentioned you decided after you retired to learn to paint.
Yeah, I did. I hadn't a clue. I found a teacher in Cox Green Community Centre, and I spent a few years with her, and she put me through it, and it was great. It's good, but I needed on something artistic, something crafty, and I didn't have a clue what I would do. But anyway, I've done. And I found getting older is quite a challenge. Mm-hmm. That's my challenge at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes. trying to make sure I stay positive and do it gracefully. And I think, and that's what God has been saying to me, you've got to stick to this, Pat, you know. And that's what I've been trying to do. But it's not easy. No. It's a case of when you start to lose things, lose the ability to do this or that, and you have to be able to reset the scene and meet it. But there's always people around that are willing to help. But the important thing is to learn to ask for help. It is not a weakness to ask for help. And it's sometimes some of us are reluctant to ask for help. For instance, I was planning to go back to. I wasn't very well early last year, and I wanted to get driving long distances again, and I wanted to get my iPhone on my windscreen, and I wanted to get it all sorted. And I think I had about several people at different stages I was able to ask, and eventually I got it all done. And I was doing it, and I managed to go off and drive for a couple of hours to where I wanted to go. And that was in a sense of achievement. After you've had a fall or a negative thing, then to pick yourself up and go forward. And that's, I look at Desi. She's amazing, isn't she?
She is amazing.
She's amazing.
Big up to Desi. Yeah. and you are two ladies who really show us, I think.
But it's another challenge for my life.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
And you've applied that same formula, haven't you, to find the people that can help in those situations, to go forward. And you really do feel God's given you this, showing people how to age gracefully and positively.
Yes.
And as you said, asking is a sign of strength, not of weakness. Yes. And you're still applying that same sort of thread that runs through your life, hearing God, following through on that, finding the way to solve it. And even in that, I like that example you gave of the sat-nav, learning how to do all of that in order to give yourself the capacity to do what you're trying to achieve.
Yes.
That's that same principles you've done through your life and adapted to any situation, be that work or your charity stuff or your own life. You said to me right at the beginning, God's always been there. It's hard to pick out the things to talk about. And I think some of those things you've given us incredible examples. And I know, as you've got older, the art thing is another example of how you've gone from beginning. She's, by the way, a really, really good artist, and asking isn't a strength or weakness. And we have got, just to point out, by the way, you've been scrolling the whole time, which you're not aware of. That's you in Iran, I think, on a donkey.
It's Iran, yes.
Iran, there, as you do.
We've broken down, so we had a bit of entertainment.
I think before we move on to questions, if that's all right, Obi, does anybody want to ask anything? That's thrown up loads, I know, and we have got some questions for discussions between you, but this is a golden opportunity to ask a golden lady. Any questions? Anybody got anything they would like to ask, Pat? On the basis of what we've just heard. It's too much information, isn't it? The life that we all live and aspire to. And I think it's a privilege for me to do this interview. We got a question. Where did that come from? Barry.
I'd just like to ask you, will you be travelling abroad again? But do you still enjoy it?
Good question, Barry. You talked a lot about what we've done in the past. In the future, do you still see yourself travelling, Pat?
I don't think I'll be going long distance, But I've been flying off to France for a week, the end of this month. So
yes.
I'm still doing a bit. But I think it's the long distance travel is a bit, but it's difficult. I get assistance at Gatwick. They're very good there. But it is difficult doing it on your own. If you can find somebody with the money and the health to do it with you, that's great. But it doesn't always work, because I've lost quite a few friends, as you can imagine, along the way. So it's choosing how you do it, what to do. Yeah. But I can still do it. I can still read about it and do everything. And I have umpteen stories.
Any other questions? Yes, Scott.
Hi, Pat. You said that at the moment you're looking to live gracefully and and to continue with vision and
Yes.
all the rest of it. You also said you've been in the church for a long time,
Yes.
and you have walked out a lot of that with you. Over that time, there's been all sorts of different directions and visions and phases that we've gone through as a church and so on. And I think in recent times we've been going through another phase. You know, Adam's bringing in what he's bringing in terms of his leadership. How have you adapted? How have you coped? And what's your vision in all of that?
Great question.
Yeah. Well, I pray about it each time we had a change, each time we had a change, and talk to God about it. And but God is there all the time, all the way through. And I'm a positive person. I'm an optimistic person. And I know that with God with us going through, this church will survive ups and downs and changes. And they have done. And I've stuck with it. Yeah, it's great. I think we might have smaller numbers or bigger numbers, depending. It's changed a lot. But I'm still with it. Yeah, all the way through. Because God is there. And there is opportunity to express yourself here, which you don't necessarily get in many churches. And I think there's a friendship here and a softness and a kindness, which is special, absolutely special. And I just thank the Lord for River Church. Yeah.
Great answer.
And all the people in it.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's all of you
Amen.
guys. That's all of us.
It is really, isn't it?
And actually,
Everyone's important.
I'm reminded, you said to me, many years ago, which some of the people who've been around a long time like us remember, on a Friday evening we used to have a meeting at Great Marlow School, and Pat was still working then on all the changes she was talking about, which was quite hard. And you said the Friday evenings.
Yes, it was special. The Friday evenings at Great Marlow School. I remember them very, very clearly. I remember sort of getting to Friday morning and having to go to work with all the turmoil and all the changes there, to then go to Great Marlow School and have a Friday evening worship and interaction. It was just beautiful. It was lovely. I think many of us just look forward to it. It was a special day on a Friday.
So that sense of filling up again and recharging, as it were, with God. Yeah. When things are difficult, keep coming back to God, keep recharging, keep remembering those good things, even when things are tough against you.
Yes.